All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to podcast number 2, the Reserve Team podcast. Thank you to everyone for your support and your feedback on the very first podcast out last week where we discussed the rise and fall of the Central Coast Mariners. This week, we pick ourselves back up again and we talk about some of our favourite away days across the A-League competition. I'm joined again by Alex Dwyer. Alex, how have you been?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Football season just ended last weekend. We ended with a loss, but I've managed to finish top tied goal scorer, so that's a good way to end. And yeah, just chilling out this week and enjoying the off season now.
You didn't let us know about that one in the pre-show. Just a nice sneaky little humble brag out there for anyone recruiting strikers.
Yeah, 7 goals only, so it wasn't anything groundbreaking.
That's fine.
We had some fun.
That's fine. I'm pretty sure, like most A-League seasons, a striker getting 7 goals is a decent return, so you should be proud of it. We're also joined by Bran Gibson. Thanks again for joining us, Bran. How's your week been?
Week's been good. I'm glad to be back. I have no impressive achievements such as tied top goal scorer to brag about, but I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here.
Victorian seasons were cancelled. I mean, if they hadn't have been, I would have had 25 Sunday League goals, and they all would have been tap-ins from yard out. It would have been perfect. But that's
worldies, you mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe when I retell them, they become worldies. But in reality, if anyone actually sees them, they're from a yard out. But that's all right. That's just good inspiration for us to try and beat Alex's goal scoring feats in 2021. So roll on the next pre-season. We are, of course, today speaking about our favourite away days. Of course, Australia being a full continent and New Zealand included within that as well. There are some very long trips. The Distance Derby comes to mind as being the longest domestic game in any top flight division around the world. But we're also really lucky. We can either have really long car trips, big road trips across states and across country lines to try and get and see our teams away. There are long train trips. There are sometimes cheap flights, which also kind of come into it when you try and book an away day. But there are a really great amount of venues across the country that are fantastic to go and support your team from a travelling capacity. Alex, we'll go to you first. What are some of your initial thoughts on your favourite away days or the best away days in the league itself?
I think an away day is a lot of fun, especially in Australia, because you get to catch those trains and try and look for those cheap flights for a semi-final or a final maybe, and do the road trips for the FFA Cup and stuff like that. So yeah, and the fans that generally turn up to the away games are a little bit more loyal than the every so often going fans who come to a home game at Melbourne City or at Sydney FC. So yeah, I love an away day, going away with your mates for maybe half a day or overnight or something like that. Bit of fun in another city, and yeah, just some great memories over my couple of away trips.
Yeah, well, some of those memories become very blurry, but what happens on an away trip stays on an away trip. Bram, what about for yourself?
I totally agree. Away days, they're just so much fun. I think they're my favourite game to go to. Just the build up, the anticipation, the travel. Organising how you're going to get there, the suspense, the build up. As Alex said, having fun in a different city, and then just being with the fans. Like when you're there with your fellow supporters, you get a real us versus them mentality, and it just sort of hypes you up even more. I just love it.
Yeah, you're never louder than when you've got, like 75 other people there to have your back in case you say anything stupid or if security starts coming over the fence towards you. Not that I've behaved in that manner, not that I'm admitting to anything, not that I want to be called on a list at any of these grounds, but yeah, there are definitely some fantastic away trips and some fantastic venues that are really well catered to that we'll talk about further in today's episode. So I'll kick us off. I'll get stuck in. I'll give you guys like an example of my favourite away day. And mine is actually Adelaide United and a trip to Cooper Stadium over in Adelaide. I've been there, I think, 4 times, and we had a good run where we went kind of like 4 years in a row, myself and a couple of my friends. Sometimes we caught the bus. I think the first time we caught the bus and then decided to never do it again because it's about like an 18-hour round trip. And then after that, we actually got flights into Adelaide and, stayed in and around the city. Had great nights out, going to Rundle Mall, seeing the best that Adelaide has to offer in terms of nights out, which isn't, perhaps on the level of some of the other cities, but it is, for a pissant town, a really, really nice place to actually go and visit, particularly during the summer months. And the football itself is always good quality. Even though Adelaide United can sort of be a little bit up and down in their seasons, they're always in and around the final series picture, that top 6 finish. It's very rare that they have a team that's really horrific to play. And they always play really well at Cooper Stadium. I think it's a fantastic boutique venue. Like Bran, you and I spoke last week when we were doing our tier list video about my love of Coopers as a boutique venue and as a rectangular stadium in Australia. And its away support is fantastic. There's like a nice little pocket corner away near a corner flag. You think of watching football all around the world and those little away pockets for fans that are travelling throughout England and the rest of Europe as well. It really is that. So you can peel away towards the corner flag if you find a winning goal and all your fans are there and your colours supporting you well. It's a good little bay as well. It's always kind of nearly full. I think it's about 100 people, and most clubs, or Melbourne City in particular, usually fills it out for their away games in Adelaide. So it's always a great little atmosphere in that area. At the other end, the Adelaide fans are always giving loads to whoever. I think there's a long-running theme across quite a few different membership groups that everybody else marries their cousins. I think Adelaide people think that we all hook up with our cousins. I think we all think that people from South Australia do as well. So some of their chants are a little bit reflective of what we would say about them. But it's always a good atmosphere. They're always really hard-fought games as well. I think both Melbourne City, who I support obviously, and Adelaide United, they're always very fit teams. They always really go after it in games. It always leads to a high-intensity contest. And even if it isn't, 4 or 5 goals, there's always like a really good football spectacle put on for everybody, regardless of what that result may be. Most of the time, I would say that we've lost those games. I think of the 4 that I've been to, it's potentially that we've lost 3, and some of those were relatively heartbreaking affairs. I remember Mark Okiang scoring a very late goal just as we were pushing for a winner in a very successful season. But my favourite trip, the best one that I had, was I think the 15-16 season, maybe 16-17. I'll have to go and check exactly. But it was a 1-0 victory. Nick Fitzgerald got a fantastic goal, cutting in from the right, smashed it on his left foot into the top corner. We had gone into that game, I think, in second position. I think at the time Adelaide were undefeated. It was pretty early in the season, and I think they were sitting top of the division. It was an end-to-end contest. It was like the peak Melbourne City team. We had the likes of Aaron Moy, Harry Navio, John Van Skip was still managing, so we were playing like a good brand of football, and it was really those were the days. Like, we look back on them fondly. Not that, recent history's been good. We're actually making cup finals and stuff now, but, those were the glory days, but we didn't quite realise it at the time. We got it. We got the win. We had a great night out after. That's the part that gets a bit blurry for me as to what actually happened once we concluded the game. But again, just a great venue, wonderful place to travel to during summer as well. It's always nice weather. It's always a good temperature as well as you get into your Saturday evening. There's a great selection of places to go once you get back into the city, wherever your accommodation may be. And it's just one of my favourite places to travel to, Adelaide. It's always one of the first away trips I look for once the A-League fixtures come out, once that calendar's released. And fingers and toes crossed as lockdowns start to reduce across the country. Maybe we will be allowed to do an Adelaide away trip again this season, but even if we don't, it's always one of my favourite trips of the year. Do you guys have any reflections or thoughts on Adelaide as an away venue, if you have travelled there yourselves, or potentially, do you have any reflections on Adelaide just as a club? Alex, we'll go to you first.
Unfortunately, I've never been to Coopers. I'd love to go. I had a mate who, for the FA Cup final, when we played them, Sydney FC, he and 2 other guys drove all the way from Sydney there, and it sounded like a pretty great time. I'd love to go out there. Adelaide, I feel like I want to say they're a bogey team for us, but then every week we play a team, I'm just like, it's the bogey team again. Maybe because we have a small league, it's just every team is a bogey team. But I feel like when we play Adelaide, it's always a really intense game. Would absolutely love to go there. I've heard really good things about the stadium.
Was that the Craig Goodwin final?
Potentially. I can't remember the score.
Yeah,
I know we lost.
There was a Craig Goodwin final where basically he just kept picking up the ball and scoring when he felt like it. I think he scored one absolute cracker and then like another decent cutback type goal for a 2-1 victory, if I remember correctly. So maybe you got away with it by not having to travel and watch your team lose in a cup final, because that in itself gives its own challenges. Bran, I know you've also gone and done a couple of trips to Adelaide, so we are just going to jump forward and have a quick look at this photo here. So why don't you talk us through some of your history on away trips to Adelaide and what this photo actually represents?
So that's such a good photo. It's so good, but it's so sad at the same time. So you've been to Adelaide a couple of times. I think my favourite part about it is the road trip. Being based in Melbourne, it's sort of Adelaide's the only real trip apart from Western United now that you used to be able to make where you could actually drive, sort of like in a reasonable time frame. Like Sydney, I think more 12 hours, but Adelaide's is 8, so it's a little bit more doable. So the 2 times I've been there, we've driven. got the bus one time and drove the other. So that particular photo, I think that was taken 2 seasons ago. Made the trip over for the elimination final. Got the bus there. What was it? 9 hours on the bus. Adelaide United scored in extra time. I think that photo, can't see what the minute says, but it's like the 118th minute, right before the final whistle. I think that at that moment, I think I'm contemplating going, we're about to lose this, and I now have to sit on a bus for another 9 hours and think about that defeat. So I think that was what was running through my head the moment that photo was taken. The other game I went to was the FFA Cup final. I was like, oh yeah, surely can't be as bad as that elimination final loss, and then we lost 4-0. I'm like, do you know what? Yep, just as bad. And you go, once again, I've got a 9-hour car journey to look forward to. But I do love it. The fact that you can drive there, I think that's my favourite part. I mean, all of us are fans of the English game, and the commentators you'll hear before a game, they'll go, oh, lengthy trip for Norwich to hike out to Liverpool. They had to travel 4 hours to get there, and you go, 4 hours, that's nothing. I just drove 9 hours to Adelaide. 4 hours, you do that in Victoria, you haven't even left the state. Come on. But yeah, that's my favourite part. I haven't had a lot of success in my away days at Adelaide, but great venue to go to.
Yeah, it is fantastic. And you haven't really made it as an A-League fan or a W-League fan, if you are listening, until you've gone and watched your team away and been absolutely battered by the other team. Like, it's a rite of passage that I think every fan has to go through at one point or another. And it makes the victories all that sweeter, which is much nicer as well. Now, we will take a small break there because we're going to jump into one of our segments. We're going to hit our mailbag now. Thanks, as always, to anyone who submitted questions in the comment section below on YouTube or over on Twitter at ReserveTeamAU. So the question that comes from us this week, and it isn't actually a fan submission, we've actually stolen this directly from the A-League Twitter account. Of course, whatever company or branch is making that $1 million tweeting out of that account, occasionally they'll ask something decent. And this week they actually asked everybody what their dream A-League marquee was. Now for you gentlemen, this isn't specifically relating to any one team. I think it's more just relating to who would we love to see come over and help revitalise the A-League. Obviously in previous seasons, we had the likes of Dwight York, Alex for Sydney FC in the first few years that really helped get them involved. ADP was a massive part of it as well. Shinji Ono, a fantastic marquee. Emil Heskey, if you're looking for meme-worthy marquees across the division and all the way across the league, a few different marquees have captured imaginations and hearts of fans to get them in the room. But who would you like to see from the current playing roster, whether that's internationally or overseas, make their way back to hopefully join and help boost numbers? Bram, we'll go to you first. Who would you like to see as a dream A-League marquee?
Well, my dream marquee is Lionel Messi. Now, it's a little bit of a stretch, but, there was it's sort of in the ballpark of potentially kind of could happen. When he was going around saying that he wanted to leave, Barcelona, Manchester City emerged as, the main suitors. And then I saw people working on deals, he'll spend 3 years at Manchester City, then he'll spend 2 years at New York City. And that's where it sort of ended. But I think after that, they should tack on another year or two after New York City and then send him to Melbourne City, ship him over, get him in the Sky Blue, get him playing down here. Because, I mean, as you said, we've had some big marquee players down here before, but none would be bigger than the genuine best player in the world.
Yeah, very true. I think the one thing that counts against this is, unlike Cristiano Ronaldo, his grandparents aren't over here, so there's no connection to draw it. But I would even take like a 45-year-old Lionel Messi in like 2035 or something like that. Like, I think he'd probably still run rings around quite a few of the youngsters that we would have coming through at that period. But a worthy addition as well. Alex, who would you like to see brought to the league as a dream marquee?
So I went a little more... I looked for someone who could join the league soon. So I went and looked at the free agents and stuff like that. And there's a couple of people on there who I think could potentially do the business in the A-League. But I'm thinking Shinji Kagawa. He's currently a free agent at the moment. And it could be great in terms of marketing in Japan and getting a bit more of an audience over there. A good marquee also for any team in the Asian Champions League. And someone who it could be a little closer back to home, keep trying to be in the Japanese national team. And I think he could really deliver in the A-League. He could be really exciting. He's a creative player, add a bit of a spark to a club. And yeah, just someone I think would be decent for the league.
That's a great shout.
It is a very good shout, and you've gone into way more research than I think either of us have in terms of looking up free agents and stuff. But yeah, like, I mean, he's definitely got a really strong European pedigree, and he could definitely like do a job. He'd probably be the best player in the league walking into it day one, which is always crazy to think about when you look at the global game itself. And then maybe this is again getting into future topics that we should cover in the podcast, but like we've always underutilized Asian-based players in terms of bringing them back to the league. I think Ono is probably the biggest success story. Hyuk-Soo Seau is a really old throwback, South Korean midfielder from the first season of the A-League. Shen King-Chu was the first Chinese striker, I think, from the first 2 years as well. All phenomenal players. There's very few that come over and don't do well.
Well, and how big was Keisuke Honda for the victory?
Oh yeah, of course, and Honda most recently.
Like, he was obviously, like, he was great on the field, but also the drama. And I remember when they were talking about the announcement and where he was going to go, the Japanese media and everything speculating on that. And then once he signed, the attention he got there, like, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully, if Kagawa came, though, he wouldn't be managing a national team at the same time.
No,
he could focus on playing.
No, but props to him. Props to him.
Yeah, I don't know how he managed to budget the time in, but he somehow did.
I just love, apparently as well, when he was at the Victory, he just had his own training program. He's like, no, I'm not gonna do what Kevin Muscat says. I'm gonna train my own way, my own recovery. And the Victory were like, yep, cool, no worries, off you go.
And of course, he gave us that famous "That's Fact" press conference as well, just to add to the meme nature of the league. Every marquee should complete one meme per season, and that was a pretty decent one that he gave to us that particular year.
I forgot about that. That's so good.
Yeah, I've gone. It's semi-realistic, but also I think it'd be a dream one for quite a few. I would love to see Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the league. One, because he's already at 38 years of age. He's already still somehow playing with AC Milan at a good level in the Serie A. He doesn't seem to age in any way. We've seen him go and do, the MLS with the LA Galaxy and was fantastic for them. I think he scored 22 goals or something in a single season, and he didn't even play the whole year. And then he's made the return back to Europe and shown that he still can compete at a very high level. He was fantastic for Manchester United his most recent seasons. He's been brilliant for a variety of clubs at the highest level, and he just doesn't seem to be slowing down. So when you kind of look around what players are sitting around that over 35 age bracket that are a big enough name that would get the league, worldwide exposure, that would get, big headlines in terms of everything that comes out of his mouth, it's ridiculous. And I should hate it if I was any sort of consistent person, but everything he says I think is fantastic. Yeah, so there's things that he can do on the pitch and off the pitch for the league that go above and beyond what his contributions might be as a player. So I think if I was going to pick one for Melbourne City to go out and sign, even though we've got a very good forward in Jamie McLaren, I'd love to see Zlatan coming to the league and hopefully contributing to it on and off the pitch for the next couple of seasons, because he's one of those guys that I think could play to like 41, 42 years of age. But it's a good list, guys. We'll see if it plays out at any point in the future. Sorry, what were you going to say, Bran?
I was going to say, I think we've done well, Alex has gone for Kagawa, current free agent. You've gone for Zlatan in 2 or 3 years. And then I've gone for Messi, well down the track after he does his 4 years in Manchester, after he does his 2 years in New York. So we've got, a nice timeline of marquees there.
Yeah, all grounded in reality, but different realities, just slightly, which is absolutely perfect. All right, we're now going to jump back into our regular podcast segment, and I'm also going to hand over from this point forward to you, Alex, to talk through your dream away day.
Perfect. So my dream away day, favourite away day, is going to the Central Coast, and it's the first away day I ever went on. I would have been... probably the first year I followed Sydney FC, I would have been 15, I think. And I had a mate who'd been following them for a while, and he said, let's catch the train up. So it was me, him, and my brother. I think a couple of his mates as well. And called the train up. We lost 7-2. Tom Rogic decimated us. So my first ever away day was the experience you were talking about. You have to lose one to know what a true away day is like. And I learned that the hard way. But yeah, just going to Gosford, you catch a train up. Now that I'm 18, you can have some beers over 18. You can have some beers in the sun. Sydney FC, I think other teams do this as well, but Sydney FC fans often do the Hawaiian shirt round as well when they go up to Gosford, which is always a bit of fun. So I've been to 3 games up there. I believe that we have won 2 of those 3, if my memory serves me correct. So the first one we lost, and then went up again the following year with some mates from school. We took a Spanish exchange student with us as well. He loved a bit of football. and we said, "Hey, you've got Liga, but wait till you see these sauce bottles." He came with us, and funnily enough, two guys actually dressed up as sauce bottles. That they weren't in our group, but we found two guys in the Sydney FC section dressed as tomato sauce, which was a bit of fun. And the final game, I think we did a road trip up there, and Sydney FC won pretty late on. But yeah, we talked about last episode in the podcast. Great place to go. It's a great vibe at the stadium, especially in the afternoon sun. And yeah, can have some beers with your friends, and it's just a good time. I'm sure you guys, if you've been there or haven't been there, I'm sure you guys have heard about how good it is up there.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most beautiful stadium that we have in the league, just in terms of the setting where it sits right near the water and with the palm trees and all that sort of stuff. Like we spoke about it a little bit, Bran, again last week when we were doing our A-League stadium tier list. It is just a proper summer venue. It will be really interesting to see how that away trip may change if we make the transition to a winter league. I'm sure it will still be fantastic. It'll still be a beautiful place to go. But it is it's one of the best away days. I think for you in particular as well, having the access by train is fantastic. It is a tricky place to try and fly into if you are in other areas of the world, but it's definitely like for fans around the league, it should be a bucket list item. Everybody should be trying to go and check out an away game at Central Coast, not least of which because, those 7-2 drubbings are kind of a thing of the past, as we spoke about last week. It is pretty much a guaranteed 3 points, and it's guaranteed beer in the sun as things currently stand. Bram, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, just quickly, you'd be mad if you got drubbed 7-2 by the Mariners in their current state. You'd be pretty horrified. Something would have gone terribly wrong. I have been to Gosford as well, and I love it. I'm just echoing everything you guys have said. It's a beautiful, beautiful stadium with the water, the palm trees. It's not too big. The sauce bottles are great. The cannon that goes off after the goals, the band, everything about it. It's just great. I love it, and I wish I could get there more often.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are listening and have the ability to go and watch your team at Central Coast, absolutely go and do that. Go and check them out. We're now going to jump into another one of our weekly segments. It is our Reserve Team Hall of Fame. So, following on from last week, gentlemen, we, of course, each nominated a different person to go into the Hall of Fame, or a different thing in and around the A-League. That tradition will continue moving forward to the next week. But first, we're going to go through the results from last week. In third position, with 12% of the overall vote, was Alex, your nominee, Mark Bosnich. Boz's laugh, I'm sure, will get in at one point in the future, but we went out very strong for the first few weeks. In second position, with 35% of the vote, is the Central Coast Mariners sauce bottle flipping the bird that Bran nominated last week. And our very first inductee into the Reserve Team Hall of Fame is none other than David Squires, fantastic cartoonist with The Guardian. He gets through with 53% of the vote. Thank you to everyone, and mostly our collaborators at the reserve team that voted for him as the lead. But it's a very lonely little collage that you can see there of him on the board. We are going to look to add some more teams to it. We are going to look to add some more inductees as well. I'll open it up now to you guys as well. Bram, we'll go to you first. Who would you like to nominate for the Hall of Fame this week?
My nomination this week is Daniel McBreen, former A-League player. He played with the North Queensland Fury. Any chance we get to give them a shout out in the podcast, got to be done. Played for the Fury, played for Perth Glory, and then played for the Central Coast Mariners. He actually won the Golden Boot with the Mariners as well. I think he scored 17 goals in the 2012-2013 season. Was part of their championship winning season as well. So he's got that on-field ability to back up a Hall of Fame worthy resume. And then off the field, he's got a pretty good shout as well. We mentioned it last week in the Central Coast Mariners podcast, talking about the New Year's Eve game against the Perth Glory. One thing that we did omit when talking about the many, many things that occurred during that game, but Daniel McBreen was one of the, what would you call it, expert correspondents?
A pundit, if you wanted to call it.
Pundit. Yep. So he was down on the sideline at halftime during the interval, and he said live on air, "Can I say this is a good metaphor for the Mariners? Fucking dog shit." And you're just like, "Yep, classic, love it." For a former player to call his own former club dog shit live on air, and without realising, hot mic, no idea. He's my nomination for the Hall of Fame.
There were too many things that happened in that game for us to possibly recap all of it. It would be 2 or 3 podcasts in its own if we tried to cover off the most hilarious game of football that has potentially ever taken place. Not for anything that happened on the field. I think it was a pretty straightforward Perth Glory win, but a worthy nomination. Alex, we'll hand over to you. Who would you like to nominate this week?
So I could nominate this person in their own right for the things they've done for the team they play for how iconic they are to the league, for their luscious hairstyle. But I'm going for a specific part of his body, and we are nominating Ryan Grant's nipple for scoring the winning goal in a grand final against your guys' team. A lovely little goal.
Here on the podcast, we get two Melbourne City fans. Gee.
I know. I've gone out for it. My Mark Bosnich suggestion didn't get many votes, so I thought I'd throw one in there that most people will enjoy. Maybe not you guys, but it just is the A-League. The fact that as a line was part of commentary blows my mind. But yeah, what a man, what a nipple, what a mullet. That's my nomination.
Yeah, it's amazing that there aren't more, either retailers or, sports scientists out there trying to do some sort of analysis on how the mullet actually improves his running capacity, because it seems to give him more strength than it takes away in terms of aerodynamics and whatever else. But yeah, look, that one stings. I'm not going to lie. I'm sure it stings Bran a little bit as well. Yeah, but it was a worthy goal. It was a very good goal, and he's a very, very good player. Good to see him. And I think one of the other things as well, not just specifically about his nipple, but just about him in general, the fact that he's come back from an ACL injury and seems faster than ever before and fitter than ever before is probably a testament to the conditioning at Sydney FC. But, we'll see how it plays out. This one's going to Twitter this week, so anything could happen once Soccer Twitter gets a hold of it. For my nomination, I'm going to go big again. I'm just going to try and get all the big ticket items done in the last few weeks, and I'm going to nominate A-League memes. Not because they're a fantastic meme page. They actually don't really do that many memes, but because of all the work that they do for the league itself in promoting it. At times, they are really the only people out there trying to promote the A-League in any capacity. They do some hilarious things. They do some things that drive me nuts. The last week, and we covered this in Weekend Recap last week, was that they created all these fake accounts throughout the course of the week and have just been trying to rickroll people. So I think the first one they did was announcing from a fake Newcastle Jets account that Steven Ugarkovic and Bernie Abini had left the club. The next day they came back and said that Brisbane Roar had agreed to move to Dolphin Stadium, which actually kind of may turn out to be true if certain Reddit threads and certain emails to members might have come out. I think they said Max Burgess had been released. I think they released a fake fixture list the second day. By the third and fourth day, I was over it. I was like, you guys are going to the well too many times. And then the fixture list came out and it actually tricked me and I clicked on the link. So I have to give them credit. I have to give props when they're due. I was successfully rickrolled by A-League memes, so they have to be my nomination for this particular week for all that they do relating to the league. But again, gentlemen, I think a very strong list. It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. If you want to cast your vote for any of the nominations that we've put up, you can check once this podcast is live over at Reserve Team AU on Twitter. For a live poll, you'll be able to cast your vote to see who the next inductee is into the very esteemed company of David Squires in the Reserve Team Hall of Fame. We're going to jump back into our regular podcast topic. Bran, I'm going to hand over to you for the next portion as well to talk through your favourite away day.
So my favourite away day is quite close to home. It's actually when City take on the Victory away. That is my absolute favourite day. I much prefer when we play the Victory away than when we play at home. And I think it's just the real sort of camaraderie you get from an away day. Pretty much all the away derbies, I think you'd agree, Sean, are at Etihad for the most part. I don't know if I've been to an away derby at Etihad. Anyway, so you're at Etihad and you're sort of off the side, in those small bays. It's a terrible spot to watch the game. You're far away from the pitch. You've got a shocking angle, but there's just so many City fans. You're all jammed in there. You're packed in there tight. Everyone's vocal. Everyone's passionate. Alex, you sort of touched on it a little bit with away days. You generally get the more outgoing fans going along to away days. Just the real sort of us versus them mentality. It's great. The great sense of togetherness, a buzzing atmosphere, and you get a little bit of the sort of Green Street hooligans kind of vibe as well, without getting too intense. But that's just my favourite away day. Just going there and you're just buzzing.
Yeah, it's if non-violent people tried to ever watch the... If there was ever an airplane edit of Green Street Hooligans where there is no fighting, then yeah, that's exactly what it's like. But
yeah, not so much the fighting point of view, but like just the idea of, you know, your club identity, and then you see the other club and you don't like them and they don't like you, and you just sort of get worked up and you get passionate and you get fired up, and they're always seem to be great games. I love it.
yeah, I'll jump in first, and then we'll hand over to you, Alex, for your like an outsider's view of the victory and the away trip. I think what helps us quite a bit, Bran, is that it is a derby experience and it is that derby atmosphere. They have pretty consistently over the last couple of seasons, probably the last 4 or 5, had the Melbourne City Christmas derby in the couple of days before Christmas, which is always a fantastic tradition. It's usually our home game, and there's always an Etihad derby relatively early in the season, which... One, it kind of means that the football's not the highest quality. Not every team has hit top gear just yet, but it always means that it's an entertaining fixture. There's usually goals. I remember like 4-1 victories with Cahill Screamers and 5-2 defeats where we've just like, I think Jason Hossman cleared the ball into the roof of our net like 3 times in a row. So there's ups, there's downs, but there is something particularly special about that venue and being in a stadium where you're outnumbered by the opposition fans 12-1. And Etihad, it's a big cauldron-like oval atmosphere. If you haven't seen it, it's a big oval. It hosts cricket, it hosts AFL games for those not familiar with the game. And you literally look, and as far as you can crane your neck in a 360-degree circle is just a sea of navy blue. And you do feel like you're getting drowned out, but it is usually one of the easier venues to try and keep that voice going throughout the course of 90 minutes. What are you going to say, Brent?
Yeah, well, the noise that you mentioned, like you're in there, and because there's so many City fans and because you're so tightly packed, everything that you're doing just sounds so loud. And then, as you mentioned as well, the victory fans, whenever they score, like they sound so far away, but it really is just a wall of noise when they do score, which we hope they don't do very often, but they have been known to it anyway. When they do score, it's great. And my favourite part as well, when City score, is you just go nuts, and everyone around you goes nuts, and everyone just gets amongst it. There's stuff flying, drinks go flying. If you got a full beer at the time a goal scored, it will not be full by the time the celebration's done. It's great.
Yeah, and I'm sure Etihad loves the extra revenue they get from everyone having to run back to the bar and get themselves another drink as well. So before we accidentally turn this into a Melbourne City podcast, which we do accidentally have a habit of doing just with our own enthusiasm, Alex, I'll hand over to you. What are some of your thoughts on Melbourne victory as an away day? And then also either Etihad or Amy Park, because you probably have a better perspective on them as an away fan.
Yeah, so my first Melbourne away day was for the 2015 grand final where we played victory at Amy Park, and so I was it would have been like halfway through my final year of school, and we thought, let's just go down, like we don't need to study this weekend, we'll go watch some football, and we got drubbed 3-0, and I hate Peking Duck till this day because they played the pre-game show, and whenever that song comes on I have to turn it off because it reminds me of the day. But Amy Park, I think I've been to Etihad once. Amy Park I've been to twice for Melbourne City FA Cup and the Victory Grand Final. And probably one of the best stadiums I've been to watch football in terms of like the seats are a great angle. I was going to say like vertical, but like a great angle to watch the game at. And it's just a nice stadium. I mean, as much as I hated every time they scored, when they did rock the Seven Nation Army, the stadium does bounce. And Victory's active support was still around then as well, so it was a pretty cool game to go to. And the other victory away, I think, was at Etihad. We beat them 1-0 on the first day of the season. I think it was the 17-18 season. We just come off beating them in the grand final, and we beat them in a 1-0 pretty nothingy game. One of the highlights, I think, was we were leaving and we were coming around the base of the stadium, and they'd held the Victory fans back, I think, to let Sydney fans get out. And then as we'd started making our way around the stadium to where they were going to be exiting, they were coming down from the top. And there's like one of those ones, it's like the spiral just path down, and they've got the graded fences, and they're just banging on the fences, like screaming. And we were like, wow, we need to go. But yeah, a great time. Melbourne's pretty fun to go to as well in terms of going out after the game and stuff as well. That grand final that we lost against Victory, we got up at 6 a.m, got down to Melbourne at, I think, 8:30, and I think we just sat in EB Games the whole time, because there's a big EB Games right near Federation Square. It's like 3 or 4 levels, and we could charge our phones and stuff and play some games, and then we bounced between that and food all day because we couldn't get into pubs yet. And and then eventually got to the game by the time it started, then caught a flight home the same night. So pretty busy and sad day, but a great an away trip to look back on, because we beat them the next time in the final, so it doesn't really matter.
Very true. You're only as good as the next game, not the past ones. But again, like I think from all three of us, we've all had good experiences. We've all had fantastic away trips. If there are fans that are watching that haven't gone and done their own away trips, whether that's local or interstate or whatever else, add it to your bucket list, because it is an experience. Home games are great, but an away trip with your friends, with family, with whoever else, the camaraderie that comes through that for your club and the love that comes through the club for all those people is second to none as far as experiences go in the league. So we strongly suggest follow your A-League team, your W League team, your international side, whoever it may be. Go and check them out at an away match and you won't regret it. We are going to jump forward a little bit, and we're going to now kind of get into speculation territory a little bit. Obviously, I don't think there's anyone in the league that has done every single away day. If they have, let us know in the comment section below or hit me up on Twitter. We will get you on as a podcast guest one week to talk through your experiences. But I want to hear from you guys, what is the dream away trip that you guys haven't actually done yet? Like, where is your next one that you want to go to and experience? Bran, I'll give you a chance to run through your dream away trip first.
Sort of thinking about it, so I've got a bit of a trip in the works, with COVID sort of going back to normal, looking like the borders reopening. We've got a release date for the A-League schedule. What I'm hoping to get to is sometime in January, February, a bit of a road trip up from Melbourne, hit up Westbank Stadium for a Wanderers game, head to hopefully Sydney will be in town as well, Campbelltown for MacArthur, and possibly as well Wollongong to see the Knicks. So that's sort of in the pipeline. It's in the works. Need the A-League fixture to come out. Maybe 1 or 2 weekends. Try to hit as many of those Sydney-based sides as possible. But the big one is got to be Westbank Stadium, Western Sydney Wanderers. That's got to be the one to go to.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone in the comment section wants to give Bran a couch to sleep on for a month while he's up there watching all of these games, then by all means, let us know. Or you can hit us up on social media. But yeah, definitely. Like we spoke about it, Bran. I haven't been there yet either, but it definitely has to be one of those bucket list items to go and check out Westbank and see what that new terrace standing area is like. See what the active fan support is. Hopefully, Western Sydney have a successful season this year against Carl Robertson, because I think they have an easier time filling it when they're winning. But I'm sure you can say that about most clubs in and around the division. Alex, as a resident Sydney sider, what are some of your thoughts on Western Sydney as an away trip?
I never actually got to do the old Pertec before. Yeah, it got demolished and stuff. So most of my away trips have actually just been to ANZ, which isn't really much of an away trip, to be honest. The one that stands out from going to ANZ was that 4-0 opening day game where it was like 62,000, which was pretty awesome to be at in terms of just having that many people at ANZ watching A-League. It just had shown how quickly it had grown from it would have been 5 or 6 seasons I'd started watching, how quickly you'd gone from having 15,000 and then the derby came around, you got 25, how we're going somewhere. And then, that was pretty cool. But yeah, out at Bankwest, it's a great stadium to go to. I've been there. We went there for the first derby, and then I saw the semis and the final out there this season as well, post-lockdown. But yeah, Wanderers is always good fun. I'm sure you guys have similar sentiment towards the victory games. It's great, being at home but feeling like you're away, I guess, because it's easier.
Yeah.
But, a great team to go and watch, and when they do have their active support, a really cool atmosphere out there as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'll jump in with my one because it's a little bit obscure. I've been thinking about it quite a bit. Obviously, Brisbane's a big one that we want to do, but if they're going to be playing at Dolphin Stadium, maybe at time of recording this season, which is an hour north of Brisbane, I think the one I'm going to go with is Wellington, just because I think it's rare that actually for any national league you get to do an international trip. So I think the novelty of actually flying over somewhere, and potentially this being one that I can try and get my partner to come with me on, and it doesn't have to be entirely a lads weekend, would be great. One, because Wellington is a fantastic city if you haven't had the opportunity to go over there, but then also just to go and see what the game's like over there. How is it represented? How is it different from the Australian League itself in the way it's presented, what the match day experience is like? Obviously, Wellington have had a couple of good seasons as well, so it'd be a good contest on and off the field. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the Cake Tin. in, but maybe it's one of those ones where if Melbourne City's fortunate enough to have one of the regional fixtures in Auckland or Christchurch or was it Eden Bar Stadium, whichever one that was that we spoke about last week, the undercover one, I would really love to get over there and check out a Wellington Phoenix game and kind of tick that one off the bucket list and experience what New Zealand football has to offer. So, Bran, what are your thoughts on Wellington as an away trip or even Wellington as opposition, knowing that it is a tricky place for us to get over to?
I think that's a great shout because, I mean, it's tricky, but it isn't. Like, it's one flight from Melbourne, and so it's not too long. You get that real sort of foreign, like New Zealand and Australia are very similar, but it really would feel like you've made a big trip. Also, like, if you use a European parallel, English fans who get to travel for the Champions League or the Europa League, going to France or Germany or whatever, it'd give you a bit of that kind of vibe, So I think it'd be great. And the Cake Tin, I'm with you, where I'm not sure what it would be like to watch a game there, if it'd be like the best venue, a bit Etihad like. But I think it'd have quite a charm to it once you're actually there and you actually got to experience. I think it'd find a good place in your heart. Yeah,
for sure. And for you, Alex, what are your thoughts on Wellington?
I'd love to go there. One, because you can just make a holiday out of it, I guess. You could go for like a proper weekend and do things and actually see things. And I think similarly in the sense that it's a bit like going to see a Champions League game. You get that overseas vibe to the trip, which would be good fun. Something that was definitely up there for my dream away day trip, because I haven't been there yet for a game. But yeah, definitely a place I'd like to go.
Yeah, and we're fortunate now that there's like 3 or 4 different collaborators on the reserve team as well. If they've got couches that I can crash on, that will help it quite a bit. But definitely, even if it's just someone to show us where the cool bars are, or for either pre-match drinks or after-match commiserations, depending on how the result goes for the team. But Alex, we'll give you a chance now. Where would your dream away day be, or one that you've got planned for the future?
I think the dream away day for me would probably be to go to Adelaide. I've heard so many good things. Like you spoke about it when with your best away day. Just ideas about the stadium there. I wish I'd gone for when we had Del Piero and the Adelaide fans had a tifo for Del Piero. But yeah, a place I'd love to go to, potentially even for a road trip, even though it is a little bit long. It'd be pretty cool to just road trip with your mates, chat football, listen to great music, and have a bit of fun over in Adelaide.
Yeah, I don't know if I can advocate the road trip portion of it, because it's not the most interesting drive. Like, I don't know if you've ever driven between Melbourne and Sydney. It is the most boring drive in the world. And Adelaide and Melbourne isn't that much better either, to be completely honest with you. But who knows?
If you do drive from Melbourne to Adelaide, you can stop off and see the big koala. That is along the route. I don't know what town it is, but you can see the big koala.
Yeah, it's a tough one. If there are any like cheap airlines out there listening that want to try and get sponsorship on the podcast, we are open to any avenues and any free tickets that we can potentially get ourselves to these away games. But we're probably dreaming a little bit too big. Or EB Games, of course. They got a fantastic shout out in today's episode. But yeah, Adelaide's a great away trip, and I get why people call it a pissant town, but if you're not from there, it is a beautiful place to visit. And it is always, cool to go and hang out in a couple of bars afterwards and talk through with other fans of your club. Bran, recommendations for Adelaide if Alex does make the trip?
Go check out the church inside Cooper Stadium. Very Adelaide, you're walking around and you go, City of Churches, it's got a church inside the stadium. Perfect.
Yeah, I think they're contractually obligated to have a church inside every government-owned building within South Australia at one point or another. But that does bring the podcast to an end for a week, gentlemen. Of course, we have a variety of different topics that we're going to continue bringing everybody each and every week. If you got feedback, positive or negative, drop it in the comment section below if you're watching on YouTube. If you are now checking this out as an audio-only podcast across your favourite podcast service, you can also hit us up on Twitter. Our links are in the description below if you wanted to get in touch. Alex, I'll go with you first. Where can people reach you if they want to see more of your content, or if they want to check out more of your social media and stuff directly?
Yeah, if you want to check me out on Twitter, it's just at AlexD_WYER. Plenty of kits I tweet about, and the occasional football result. And the podcast I also work on is at Chitty Chatter, which is a pretty sporadic podcast with some of my friends, but we talk A-League and a bit of EPL as well.
Hey, football results come and go week to week, but kits are forever, as evidenced by the fantastic old Chelsea kit that you're wearing this particular week. Bran, if people wanted to reach out to you on social media or check out some more of your content, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm at Branson Gibson on Twitter. Don't have a huge variety in my tweets. You know, whenever Fulham play, it does sort of trend towards then. Sometimes they sort of lean to the disgruntled Fulham fan side, which I'm sure everyone wants to read more about. But at Bran Gibson on Twitter, I also do a podcast that focuses on the NPL in Victoria, the Semi-Pro Potty at Semi-Pro Potty on Twitter and Instagram as well.
And of course, links to both Alex and Bran's podcast, as well as their social media accounts, are available in the detailed description below. If you want to check me out, it's at @InTheMixer_FM over on Twitter, or you can check out my YouTube channel. If you're into Football Manager and other weird niche games like that one, it's pretty much just that one. That's all I've got time to do at the moment. But new game coming out, boys. We're going to get super excited about that. I'll probably make it a podcast topic over the next few weeks, but it might be only me that's interested in that particular one. But as always, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for the continued support that we're getting both over on the website, thereserveteam.com.au, and here on the YouTube channel. We are going to continue bringing you guys weekly content here on the podcast, and with tier lists that we've got coming up with both Bran and Alex. We've got weekend recaps. We've got a whole bunch of other fantastic content that we're going to bring you guys moving forward as we get closer to the A-League season as well. But more than anything, from myself, from Alex, from Bran, from all the collaborators at the Reserve Team, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all again next time.